Hey guys, and how you doing? Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. This is Dr. Mike Ronsisvalle. Super glad you're with me today. Going to give you some pretty cool information today about how you can really begin to change some of the deepest, most core ideas that you have about you, your world, and ultimately your belief system. And we think about it, change is one of the most important questions we can ask ourselves in life, right? Like how do we change? Like how do you change entrenched beliefs? How do you change habits that you've been doing for days and weeks and months and years? And this is a question that we take up every day, all of us. And it might be how do I stop doom scrolling at night, or how do I stop yelling at my kids when they're irritating me, or how do I stop this habit that I've had, like I'm drinking too much, or I'm smoking cigarettes, or just something that I want to get out of my life, or how do I change my strategy for relationships? How do I change the way I think about myself at work and begin to be kinder to myself and a fan of myself? Those questions dictate the life we live, right? Because if we're stuck in old patterns and we can just never change, we end up on that merry-go-round of change and life that, man, leads to a lot of depression, anxiety, burnout. So just think about your life. What have you tried to change? Or, maybe you can identify a belief that you've struggled to change over the years. And, sometimes it can be, I'm a screw up, or I'm messed up, or I'm just not good at this, or I'm not relational, or I don't like people. How many times have you said that? I just don't like people. They drive me crazy. Those beliefs are what we want to lean into today, because as you shift your belief system, that's the very thing that will help you begin to engage change in multiple areas of our life. So the first thing we've got to recognize is that our beliefs don't just sit around on a shelf as a static part of who we are. Our beliefs ultimately become the lens through which we view our entire world. So any relationship, environment, any situation you come in contact with, we filter it through this belief system. So anywhere you look, anytime you're engaging a part of your life, you're filtering it through ultimately your core beliefs. So this is actually the most foundational principle that we talk about with people in therapy. It's one of the most foundational principles of life. And the question is, how do we change? How do we change? So let's start by just examining what beliefs really are. What are our beliefs? And there's lots of different schools of thought and psychology on this. And I kind of go with the idea that beliefs are mental models that are built from patterns and association in our brain. And essentially they're rooted in neural pathways, right? So there's some neurology to your belief system. You've been working for days and weeks and months and years and decades to crystallize your belief system. And beliefs are not just stored facts. Like the reality is they're part of our predictive brain. Our mind uses our beliefs in order to guess what's coming next, right? So if you believe people are inherently good and they will be good to me if I lead with love, man, that belief system will open up so many possibilities for you in your life. But if your belief is people are inherently bad and they will hurt me if given the chance, man, that belief system will limit us, and keep us from engaging people and keep us from the kind of relationships that ultimately will help us go forward in life, that will help us network for our business, that will help us feel kind of connected and less lonely over time. So a belief is essentially your brain's best guess about what's coming next. So I like to think about this metaphor. We all have GPS on our phones, right? Or we all have looked at a map. Just last night, I'm starting to use GPS all day, every day, right? Anytime I'm driving, even around town, if it's 5 o'clock or early in the morning, rush hour, I literally, if I'm going somewhere new, I'll put the address in GPS because I just want to know the fastest way to get there, right? Like if it's going to save me 3 minutes, fine, but I'm going to go with what the GPS says. And when you're driving, we just trust the GPS, even if we've never been to this part of town, even if we've never seen this part of the map before. Our brain kind of trusts the process, and it's like, okay, I'm going with this, even though I don't really have a basis to trust it other than I just trust maps. I just trust GPS. Your brain does something very similar. It relies on a map that it's drawn out based on your past experience. And so all the beliefs that you have mapped out in your brain are not based on random ideas. It's not just based on things that you put together haphazardly. Your beliefs are based on your experience, right? There is a context. And so some of those beliefs are rooted in trauma. Some of them are rooted in negative experience. I would say that the more your beliefs system is based on negative things that are happening or that have happened in your life, the more vulnerable you are to some of the things that we're going to talk about today that keep you from changing. So that it's a little food for thought there as we're having this conversation about beliefs. Know that, if you can look back and identify these specific things in your life that have been really tough, like, man, this is so hard, that's probably an indication that you're stuck in ways that you don't even recognize, because your brain has created this map. It's a map of life in some ways. It's a map of what I can expect from people and from me and from those around me. And that, just like we trust GPS, I've never been to this address, but I'm turning right because it says to turn right. Your brain's doing the same thing to you. I've never been in this situation, but I'm literally gonna make this move because my brain map, my neural pathways are telling me this is probably what I can expect. And so you need to recognize that, many times we're making decisions based on faulty assumptions in that brain map, faulty connections on a neurological level. And so the key takeaway is that these beliefs are powerful because they don't just describe reality, they create reality. Does that make sense? Once they're formed, once this map of what I can expect from the world is formed, it's really hard to change because intuitively on a neurological level, we just trust it. So, beliefs are hard to change. They are the substance of our map in our brain that leads us and guides us and gives us cognitive shortcuts to solve every problem we come in contact with. But let's talk about why they're so hard to change. I want to tell you some things and some insights from psychology that we've known for years and years. Start with what they call the confirmation bias. You guys ever heard of the confirmation bias? So when we see the world through the lens of what we already believe, those beliefs will shape what we actually pay attention to minute by minute, moment by moment. Does that make sense? So we have this confirmation bias. In other words, there's beliefs that we have, and now intuitively, without even thinking about it, I'm going to look in my environment, look in any situation I come in contact with, and I'm going to look for information that confirms what I already believe. And I have a bias that's the information I'm going to pay more attention to. So if I believe the world's dangerous, just messed up, people are broken, they're going to hurt me, I'm going to focus on every news story about crime, right? I might ignore the 70 stories about how awesome life is and how awesome and safe our community is, but I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the 2 stories about crime. I just saw this yesterday. My son's going to college, And I'm in this parent group on Facebook, and everybody's like exchanging ideas. All we're sending our kid to this college. And this person wrote in, I'm so concerned. My daughter's living in an apartment. It's at this address in this college town. And I just saw this news article that there was a person who had a gun in an apartment that's close to hers. And he holed himself up, and the cops had to go get him. And I think they shot him. And is this a safe place to live? You see how that's a confirmation bias? Like, this is one of the safest college towns in the country. Like, literally, it's picturesque. It's a great place to live. Everybody knows that. But you take one article that confirms what I already believe about the world, which is, man, the world is scary. Watch out. You're in danger. You might get hurt. And that one article is starting to get in the head of this parent, and that confirmation bias makes that parent over rely on the crime story and exclude all the other information we have about how awesome a town this is. So be thinking, man, what are my confirmation biases? What are my existing thoughts and what are my existing beliefs? And do I really kind of filter out a lot of other information and look for things that confirm what I feel like I already believe in my life? Number 2 is cognitive dissonance. Beliefs are hard to change because when we encounter information that contradicts our belief, so when we actually find something that is inconsistent with what we believe, our brain experiences discomfort. Like, we don't like that. And instead of changing the belief because of the new information we're getting, we often reject or just rationalize the new information. So think of the person who smokes every day, pack of cigarettes, but if you talk to them, they're going to say, I'm pretty healthy. Like, I'm good. They'll look at all kinds of information that would tell them you literally are killing yourself with cancer sticks. Like, that's what you're doing. And they'll discount all of it because of that cognitive dissonance. Because they'll say, oh, well, my grandfather smoked until he was 98. He smoked like a chimney. Do you see how that cognitive dissonance comes into play? I have this belief that I'm healthy and I'm going to be okay. And then I get this information that says smoking is horrible for me. But that new information, I'm just going to totally discount that. And I'm going to go with this rationalization that says, yeah, but look at my grandpa. So when we experience cognitive dissonance, competing thoughts that confront our real belief system, a lot of times we can just discount it out of hand. Like, I'm going to rationalize it away. And guys, we all do that. I'm sure you can think of things in your life right now where you would say, man, I do rationalize, and I do kind of put myself in positions where I cling to the beliefs even when I have information to the contrary. Another reason that we tend to struggle shifting or changing our belief system is connected to our identity, how we see ourselves. So people are tied to what they think they are, and changing what we think we are, like literally at our core, feels like we're losing a part of ourselves. So if your identity is, let me see if I can come up with an example. My identity is a psychologist. Like, that is just part of my DNA. When I think of me, I think of what I do. That's just natural, right? Think of us, if you know someone who's a physician or a surgeon or a lawyer or a teacher or a golfer or a surfer, like that's part of our identity. And many times we just link ourselves to that identity, and that makes it really difficult for us to see things differently and even to accept any belief system that's different than this identity that we've attached ourselves to. Make sense? All right. Number 4, why are beliefs so hard to change? Neural pathways. We've already talked about this a little bit already, but you're fighting neurology when you try to change. Beliefs are not just thoughts, as I said. They are in your brain, neural pathways. And every time we think a belief, Every time we go there and say, yes, that is true, we reinforce the pathway. And changing a belief requires creating a new neural pathway, which honestly is uncomfortable and it takes a lot of effort. It's much easier to just believe the same things, to activate the same pathways in the brain, because the more we do it, the more your brain wants to trust those pathways. So think about a construction site. Have you ever been to a construction site? As a kid, I used to play on construction sites. My family built a lot of structures out where I grew up, and I could get on top of a sand pile. I remember this distinctly. I'd love playing on sand piles. I was a kid for you, right? I didn't need much. Just give me a sand pile. I was happy for a few hours. I'd sometimes get on top of those sand piles and get a hose. I love doing this. And you just spray a hose, and man, you could just make these really deep tributaries of water, like all these little pathways that the water would start to roll down. You done that before? The longer you hold the hose in the same position, the longer it's static, the deeper those pathways get, right? And the water just wants to roll down those pathways. You stay that in that same position with the hose for long enough, and it's really difficult to get the water to go any other direction. It's exactly what happens in our brains with neural pathways. The minute you think a thought enough, the minute you act on a belief enough, the more power that belief has, the more your brain wants to go down that same pathway and activate that same pathway. So think about a negative belief that some of you might want to change, so I'm less than or not enough, that whole imposter syndrome that we all deal with on some level. The more you believe that, the more you trust it, the more you think it, the more you engage it, the more you tell yourself that minute by minute, moment by moment, I'm not enough, I'm just faking it, wait till people find out. The more you believe it, the more powerful the belief comes. And then finally, many times we struggle to change our beliefs because our beliefs have emotional weight. And what I mean by that is a lot of the beliefs that you come to the table with in life were formed very early in life. Those very formative memories. Many times, our brains aren't really even fully developed when we develop some of the guiding principles that we live by at 30 and 40 and 60 and 80. People are still working on those same assumptions, on those same belief systems. But the thing is, you developed those beliefs when you were just a kid, didn't even have a fully functioning frontal lobe. You probably were dealing with some negative things in your life, or with some people that had their own issues that they were playing out. Maybe it's mom and dad, maybe it's your siblings, maybe it's just a peer group. Remember that as you're thinking through belief systems, sometimes it's not the family of origin. Sometimes I just happened to hook up with this group in high school. And it's those very early experiences when our brain is not developed that we tend to react emotionally, and we tend to think emotionally. And so the emotional weight of those memories has a ton of power. I'll give you a very extreme example, but if you or someone you love grew up with a narcissistic parent, that's a hard situation, right? And some of the communication that you got from your parent when you did not meet their expectations or didn't, do what you were supposed to do, and you popped the narcissistic bubble by accident as a kid, man, that can come with a ton of heat, right? That narcissistic parent's going to be angry. They're going to be critical. They're coming after you. Some of you have experienced this. I'm here to tell you that experience is very emotional for an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old. Man, you feel just assaulted by the emotion. You feel shame. You feel like you're not enough. You feel like I'll never please this person who's ultimately my caretaker. I'm alive right now because of uh, the sustenance they provide, the money, the house, Maslow's hierarchy of needs come into play, right? Food and clothing and shelter. And when you have all that emotion, it feels so personal. It feels so shame-based. That belief system that people are very vindictive, and if I don't meet their expectations and please them, they will come after me hard. That belief is hard to break. It's not hard to break because it's true. It's not hard to break maybe because of anything that's happened to you recently. It's probably hard to break because of the emotional weight that memory carries from a long time ago. So there's probably more I could say about that, but I wanted to make sure that you guys understood you're not crazy that change is so hard. You're not crazy that it's been so difficult to shift some of your belief systems over time. You're stuck in these patterns for very good reasons. Some of it's based on your history, some of it's based on your neurology, some of it's based on just the fact that you've been stuck in these beliefs for decades and decades and decades. But the truth is, those beliefs are hard to change for a reason. So first things first, get the criticism off the table. Get the part of you that wants to judge you for not changing off the table, and allow yourself just to normalize this and to recognize that if you do some very basic things, you can begin to change some of these very, very core beliefs. Now, what are core beliefs? And I think it's important for me to outline that. For those of you that have listened to some of my content on the Live Well coaching platform, this is probably going to be old hat for you, but let me just do a quick summary of core beliefs so that you understand the most important beliefs that all of us need to lean into and try to understand more, because there are guiding principles. They are what is resident at the core of our very being. And changing these core beliefs is one of the challenges for all of us in life. So cognitive behavioral therapy, that is the kind of therapeutic modality that I use in therapy with people. It's probably the most validated treatment to work with the overwhelming majority of mental health issues. And cognitive behavioral therapy talks about core beliefs as deep, oftentimes unconscious assumptions we hold about ourselves and others in the world. And in many ways, it's the core ideas that you have about what makes you acceptable and worthwhile and significant and lovable, and what makes you okay and what keeps you safe. And those core beliefs, again, that's the filter, right? You're filtering all the information that you encounter through these real deep, deep unconscious belief systems. So an example would be, I'm unlovable. I'm broken goods, I'm damaged goods, and people just are never going to treat me the way I need to be treated. They're never going to love me. Another one would be, people just can't be trusted. People are hard. People are difficult. And if given the chance, they're going to screw you. Another one would be, the world is unsafe. I live in a world that is, I need to keep my guard up because I don't want to be vulnerable. And if I'm vulnerable, it's high likelihood that someone, somewhere, something is gonna attack me. And there's a lot of different ways that these core beliefs come out. I like to think of core beliefs as rooted in people pleasing, performance, and ultimately control of the outcome. As I work with people, and I have for decades, that tends to be the three major buckets that the core beliefs fall into. So people can't be trusted. Think about that core belief. At the end of the day, that's a combination of people pleasing. Like, I've got to be very, very diligent to make sure that I meet people's expectations and be what they need me to be and please them. And perfectionism. And I've got to do it perfectly every time. You see how that at the very core, people pleasing and perfectionism, performance-based core beliefs are what's going to drive this this thought that says people just are, they're going to attack me if given the chance. And when we shift the core beliefs, it can be really transformational. When we can change a core belief, the entire emotional structure built on top of it really changes. And CBT teaches that thoughts influence feelings and feelings create behavior. So changing those really core thoughts that drive your automatic thoughts in the moment, man, that can change your emotion in the moment. And then when your emotion is different, your behavior will change. And if you want more information about this, I really encourage you to go to the Stress Relief for Life course on the Live Well Coaching platform if you guys have not done that course yet. It's one of our more intense courses. There's a lot there, a lot of information saturated all over that course. But I'm telling you, it will help you tease out specifically how people-pleasing, perfectionism and performance and control of the outcome serve as the foundation for almost all of our unhealthy, dysfunctional core belief systems. So I want you guys to lean into that. And the whole premise is, if the house is built on the foundation and the house is built on the core belief, when you start to shift core beliefs, then the whole house is going to collapse, right? You're going to be able to build a whole new structure on a whole new belief system. So I want you to know that change is possible. And that's one thing that it's easy to lose track of sometimes when we are overwhelmed by the core beliefs and overwhelmed by the lack of ability to change over time. We just start to feel like, man, maybe it's hopeless. Maybe I'll never get there. Maybe I'm going to be dealing with the same crap in 10 years and in 20 years. And I want you to know, I do this with people all day, every day. Change is possible. As difficult and entrenched as those belief systems are, even neurologically, even though they're the part of your literal neurology, you can begin to shift and change your belief systems. And as you do that, it literally changes everything else. Everything else. Mike, I've been trying to exercise for 10 years. I just can't seem to get serious about it. I can't seem to follow through with it. Every year at New Year, I make a resolution, and by February 1st, I'm done going to the gym, and I never go back until the next January. I'm here to tell you that that's a behavior that's based on some emotions, that's based on some thoughts that are based on those core beliefs. As you begin to shift your core beliefs, as you begin to change the very structures that are the substance of your identity, you will find that everything that's built on that foundation can change. So if you've been struggling to work out and kind of get yourself in a healthy position physically, all you've got to do is say, okay, wait, let me go to my core, understand what belief system is driving the negative emotion and the lack of follow through. And I promise you, you can get some leverage over these things that have been very, very resistant to change. So I want to tell you about what amounts to some really positive research that's come out regarding change, and in particular, changing your belief systems. And it's called the New Hope, New Skills, New Thinking Pathway. New Hope, New Skills, New Thinking Pathways. And I'll explain why that matters, but the in a nutshell, what researchers have recognized is, if you really want to change your belief system, if you want to have some success over time and lasting change, you have to begin to develop the hope and the skills and the thinking that will support that change over time. These researchers are the ones that went to cardiovascular patients and gave them a choice. And the choice that they gave cardiovascular patients was, you are sick, you have incredibly high blood pressure, you have incredibly high cholesterol, you're in trouble, and you are a ticking time bomb. As a matter of fact, you're in such trouble that unless you change your lifestyle, the way you eat, the pattern that you have of exercise, the manner in which you deal with stress, you're going to die. Like it is that important that you begin to look deeply at your cardiovascular health, because if you don't, you will die. So the choice was change or die. Now, how many people faced with that choice do you think stepped back and said, man, I really should change some things, and were able to follow through with it? Think about it right now. Give yourself a percentage. 82% of people that are faced with that challenge and that question, okay, you've got to change or die, choose die. Wow. I mean, is that wild or what? It's hard to even believe. But 82% of people, when faced with that decision and are really challenged with, look, you've got to change a lot if you're going to make it, they never are able to make the change. They choose die. And so some researchers started to look at this and they said, man, we got to do something here. We've got to find some way to motivate these people to change. They were all doctors. They wanted to see their patients survive. So what they did is they went to these patients and they said, look, we're not going to teach you the whole baby step method for change. And the baby step method for change is based on the idea that if you just take baby steps, just little small changes, make little small progressive changes over time, and that's your path to long-term change and to big change of the core beliefs and the core structures that ultimately drive your feelings and your behavior. They recognized that didn't work. And the reason that it doesn't work is because people are changing enough to make themselves uncomfortable, but not enough to really see the tangible results of their effort early on. So if you take a cardiovascular patient and you say, okay, you've got to take some baby steps, right? Just let's make some small adjustments. So I want you to start walking, walk a mile a day. Let's start there. Nothing big, no marathon running, just walk a mile. And then you should adjust your eating habits. Let's try to insert some vegetables. You should eat some greens every day, all this healthy stuff. And it's all good stuff, right? But let's make some little changes. And they would work, and they had all the paraprofessionals that were helping, right? And the nutritionists, and here's your plan. And what they found is that these people were uncomfortable. Like they're now walking, and they hadn't been exercising for years. And now their dinners aren't that great. They're not eating chicken wings, but there's a few healthy things thrown in there, and so that's uncomfortable. It doesn't taste as good, and so I don't like the way I'm living now. It kind of sucks. Get to the end of the month, and I've lost a pound, or I've lost 2 pounds, and it just feels so hopeless because we're trying to change, but we don't see the tangible result of our change, and we get disillusioned and in some ways kind of hopeless that we'll ever really make it. And we just give up and go back to what we know. And these researchers were like, man, that's why 82% of our people are choosing die. And they decided to do something very, very different. What they did is they said, okay, we're no longer doing this. We're going to say, you're going to change, but we're not taking baby steps. We're going to go all in. We're going to change everything, sweeping change. You're not going to just eat some broccoli once a day. We're putting you on a stringent diet. It is going to be a diet that you've never done before, and you're probably going to hate it, and the food's not going to taste the way anything that you've been eating for years tastes, but this is your path to wholeness. And by the way, you're not walking for a mile. We're putting you with a trainer. You're going to get in the gym. You're going to start lifting weights. You're going to start doing 45 minutes of cardio a day. We're putting you on the Stairmaster. You're going to be so sweaty when you leave the gym. You're going to feel like you've taken a shower. Like we're going all in, like extreme makeover kind of all in. And guess what? The people that they could convince to go all in saw dramatic differences in the outcomes. So they would get to the end of a month and they'd be like, my gosh, I'm 6 or 8 pounds lighter. My cholesterol levels are going down. My blood work's it's already looking better. The people that followed that program, that all in extreme, I'm all in, 76% of the people choose change. Can you imagine the excitement in that cardiovascular team? It's out in California, I think, that they did this study. They must have been so pumped because now they had a chance. They could see 76% of their high-risk patients survive. And the reason they were going to survive is because they were going to go all in. And they would see tangible results of their effort early on in the process. And this is the research that has led to the New Hope, New Skills, New Thinking paradigm. And that's what I want to infuse into you guys to give you a real concise strategy that helps you actually change some of your deep-seated belief system, even the ones that were formed very early on in life through very negative experiences, sometimes with the closest people that you've ever had in your life. You ready? All right. So what we're going to do is I kind of planned on this being a 2-session Wellness Wednesday. So we're going to press pause here, and I'm going to come back next Wednesday, and I'm going to finish up with some very tangible, practical steps that are based on this New Hope, New Skills, New Thinking paradigm, and give you the very strategies that you need to change your belief system. And as you change your belief system, you're going to find that all the things that you've wanted to shift and change in your life, you now have the ability to ultimately choose life. Just the same way those cardiovascular patients choose life, you're going to have an opportunity to choose a new life, a new belief system that's going to drive new thoughts and new feelings and ultimately new behaviors. All right, so get back with me next Wednesday. Do not miss this, because this is where the rubber meets the road, and it's where I give you the tangible strategies that will help you ultimately change your life, change the things that are entrenched, change your core beliefs. All right. Super fun. This is one of I love talking about this pretty much as I love anything I talk about. So very exciting session for me. I hope you guys got a lot out of it, and I will see you next week on Wellness Wednesday. All right, guys. Have a